Wow, did you know that in America, there are actually more guns than people? It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. It speaks volumes about, well, us. And today we're diving into, well, you've given us quite the collection of stuff about gun control, personal safety, all that.
Yeah,
It's a lot to unpack.
yeah. It's a really interesting mix. You've got history, you've got legal stuff, and then you've got these really personal stories, people fiercely defending the Second Amendment. Others, well, they're scared, right?
Right.
Worried about gun violence. And then you even asked if we could use a gun if we had to. Heavy stuff.
No kidding. So,
Yeah.
okay, where do we even begin? It feels like every conversation about guns in America always circles back to the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
But how are we supposed to apply something written centuries ago to, now?
It's the big question, isn't it? Like, back then, they were worried about militias defending the country. I mean, could they even imagine an AR-15? Heck, they were arguing about muskets and cannons. Actually, even then, there were debates about what kinds of weapons were okay for regular people to have. So this whole thing about high-capacity magazines and assault rifles, it's like history repeating itself, this balance between individual rights and, well, keeping everyone safe.
And speaking of that balance, you brought up stand your ground laws, which always seem to be a powder keg. What's the deal with those?
Yeah, people get really fired up about this one. I think the biggest myth is that stand your ground means you can just shoot anyone anytime you feel threatened, which is totally not true. Basically, it gets rid of this idea called duty to retreat, which means in certain cases, you don't have to try and run away before you defend yourself. But, and this is key, the force you use, it still has to be justified. And that's where things get really complicated.
So even with stand your ground in place, you still have to prove self-defense in court.
100%. And what counts as a reasonable belief that you needed to use deadly force, that can depend on so many things. The situation, the state you're in, even the exact words in that state's law. It's messy. And because it's so unclear, it's applied unevenly, which, yeah, fuels the fire even more.
Man, that really makes me think about the question you brought up before, about whether we could use a gun if we had to. I mean, just the thought of it.
It's a lot to process, and we can't speak for anyone else, but here's the thing. It's not just about that one moment. There's what happens after, the legal stuff, the emotional toll. You might have to live with taking a life, even if it was self-defense. That changes you.
Yeah, definitely puts things in perspective. So shifting gears a little here, you also jotted down some things that might actually help. Background checks, red flag laws, programs for communities. Any hope in those, you think?
I think so. Let's take red flag laws. They're controversial for sure, but basically, they give people a way to get guns away from someone who might be dangerous, even if it's just temporary. It's about preventing something bad from happening. And then you've got programs that work with communities trying to get to the root of the problem, not just the symptoms.
Yeah.
That's hopeful, right?
So even with all this arguing, there are people trying to actually, talk to each other, find common ground.
Exactly. We have to at least try to see the different sides, the different experiences. It's not easy, but it's essential.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we covered a lot. America's relationship with guns, it's complicated. We talked Second Amendment, stand your ground, even what it means to actually pull the trigger. A lot to think about. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Anytime. Someone's got to keep the conversation going.
The thing that really got me was this. So much of this comes down to how we interpret things. The laws, our rights, what it means to feel safe. Makes you wonder, in a country this divided, can we ever really find one answer that works for everyone? Something to think about?